Paul hadn't planned to be on the run. In fact, when he first met Lisa at that smoky bar one stormy evening, he thought he was being a gentleman. She'd seemed lost, desperate even, and he couldn't resist offering her a hand. The soft flicker of her eyes, those darting glances, screamed vulnerability. She had whispered a quick, breathless plea, something about needing a way out, someone to trust. And Paul, always a helper, had been too quick to play the hero. But now, the sound of footsteps echoed behind him. His breath caught, his heart racing as he weaved through the alleyways, trying to stay ahead of the shadows chasing him. He cursed under his breath, realizing he hadn't been running from just the law. There were others, much darker forces hot on his trail. It had been 3 days since he'd last seen Lisa. 3 days since she'd vanished with a chilling smile and his sense of peace. Paul had no idea who Lisa really was, not then. She had that innocent face, the soft-spoken words that made you feel like you were the only person in the world who could help her. But Lisa wasn't innocent, she was a professional. A thief who made a habit of stealing more than just wallets or jewelry. She'd taken something this time, something far more valuable. Something that belonged to the wrong people. And Paul was right in the middle of it. He remembered their last conversation. She had been unusually calm, too calm. "Paul," she had said, leaning in close. "We need to lay low for a while. It's just a misunderstanding. I took something I shouldn't have." "What did you take?" Paul had asked, tension mounting in his voice. Her lips had curled into a small smile. "Nothing big, just information." But it was big. The kind of information that could ruin lives and topple organizations. It wasn't until the news broke that Paul realized the gravity of the situation. A high-profile tech company's most guarded secrets had been breached, and Lisa had stolen them. Now, not only were the police after her, but a shadowy group with deep connections and lethal methods had joined the chase. As Paul's mind raced back to the present, the footsteps behind him grew louder, closer. He made a sharp turn down another alley, hoping to lose them, but instead, he found himself face to face with 2 men, silent, ominous figures blocking his path. "Paul," one of them spoke, his voice cold and commanding. "You've got something we want." His heart sank. "I don't have anything. I'm not part of this." "I didn't even know." The second man stepped forward, raising his hand to silence him. "It doesn't matter. You're involved now. And she left something with you. Whether you know it or not." Paul's mind raced. Left something with him? His pockets were empty. His bag just held clothes. Then it hit him. The key. That odd, nondescript key Lisa had slipped into his hand the night she disappeared. He hadn't thought much of it then, but now he realizes it must be more than just a piece of metal. It was the key to whatever secret she had stolen. He had to act fast. Paul lunged, shoving past the man, adrenaline pumping as he sprinted down the alley. He didn't know where he was going, just that he had to keep moving. Stay one step ahead. Lisa's betrayal cut deep. But more than that, the mystery surrounding her grew darker with every passing hour. As Paul ran, 1,000 questions swirled in his mind. Who exactly was Lisa working for? What was the secret she'd taken? And most importantly, why had she chosen him to get caught in this deadly game? The answers wouldn't come easily, but one thing was certain: Paul wasn't just running anymore. He was being hunted. Suspense builds as Paul slowly realizes that he's become a pawn in a much larger, more dangerous game. It keeps the reader guessing about Lisa's true intentions and the extent of the web Paul finds himself caught in, making the twists and turns all the more gripping. Paul's breath was ragged, his legs on fire, but he didn't stop running. Every corner he turned felt like a dead end. He had no time to process it all: Lisa's deceit, the men hunting him, or the fact that his life had been turned upside down in less than a week. But one thing was clear: he had to figure out what went wrong. Why him? What did Lisa leave behind that made him a target? His escape led him to an old, abandoned warehouse on the outskirts of town, a place far removed from the bustling city streets and flashing police lights. The eerie silence made him feel exposed, but it was the only place he could catch his breath and think. In his pocket, the key Lisa had left him felt heavy. Paul pulled it out, staring at it under the dim moonlight filtering through the cracked windows. It was plain, ordinary, until he noticed something. A tiny inscription on the side, almost invisible unless you knew to look for it. "Safe House 12. Safe house? Was this where Lisa had planned to meet him? Was it connected to her real objective? Paul didn't have time to ponder it. He had to act fast, or he wouldn't live long enough to get the answers. Pulling out his phone, he searched for Safe House 12, but nothing came up. Just a few vague references on encrypted forums, places only hackers or criminals would know to look. But one thing was clear. It wasn't just a location, it was a highly secure drop-off point. One used by people who didn't want to be found. Paul pieced it together. Lisa had stolen something, a piece of information too dangerous to be out in the world. The kind of data people would kill to get their hands on. And she had hidden it in Safe House 12. The key wasn't to a locker or a safe. It was a digital code embedded in the key itself. But why had she given it to Paul? Maybe she knew she was being followed and needed him to be her unwitting decoy. Maybe she thought he could figure it out. Paul wasn't sure. But right now, figuring it out was the only way to survive. He set off again, but this time with purpose. He knew where Safe House 12 was, a derelict building just outside the city, camouflaged as a run-down repair shop. He had passed it 1,000 times, never once thinking it was anything more than a forgotten relic. Now, it was his only hope. When he arrived, the place was eerily quiet, but his gut told him this was the right spot. With trembling hands, Paul inserted the key into a small, rusted lock on an unmarked door. The door clicked open, revealing a dimly lit room filled with computer servers, stacks of encrypted drives, and piles of paper files. This wasn't just a drop-off point. It was a hub for stolen secrets, Lisa's stash of illicit information. As he moved deeper into the room, Paul spotted a small computer terminal. It was the only way to access the data Lisa had stolen. The key slid into a hidden slot, and the screen blinked to life. Files began to decrypt rapidly, plans, blueprints, communications from shadowy corporations. It was bigger than Paul had imagined. Lisa hadn't just stolen company secrets, she had exposed an entire network of corruption that stretched across countries. Paul's heart raced. This was it. This was why they were after him. If this data got out, it would topple entire corporations, government agencies, and criminal organizations. But he had to be smart. Just releasing it all wasn't enough, it would get buried. He needed to make sure it hit the right hands. As he copied the files onto a flash drive, the distant hum of engines grew louder outside. The people hunting him had tracked him down. He didn't have much time. He had to get out of here before they found him, but not before securing his way out. In a split-second decision, Paul did something bold. He sent encrypted snippets of the data to several high-profile journalists and law enforcement officials with an anonymous message: "If anything happens to me, the full story drops." It was a warning and his insurance. They wouldn't dare touch him now, not without risking the full release of the data. He had them cornered. As he slipped out of the building, headlights beamed into the alley. The men had arrived. Paul dove behind a dumpster, watching as they stormed the building. They wouldn't find him or the files. He had bought himself time, but this wasn't over. Not yet. With the drive safely in his jacket, Paul vanished into the night. The knowledge he carried would either save him or destroy him. But one thing was for sure, he wasn't running anymore. He was going to take control. He'd find Lisa, get answers, and clear his name. And if anyone tried to stop him, they'd be dragged into the light with the secrets they were so desperate to hide. Paul was done playing the victim. Now, he was holding all the cards. The story ends with Paul using his wit to turn the situation around, ensuring his safety while setting up a path to clear his name. The suspense remains high as Paul escapes, now armed with dangerous knowledge and a plan to take control of his own fate. As Paul disappeared into the night, the weight of the flash drive in his pocket felt like both a curse and a key to his freedom. He knew the game wasn't over, but this time he was in control. The hunters would become the hunted, and Paul was ready to expose the truth no matter the cost. But what's next for Paul? Will he find Lisa and uncover her true motives? Or will the dark forces chasing him strike before he can clear his name? Stay tuned for the next thrilling chapter of Caught in the Web, where every move could be his last, and the stakes get even higher. If you loved this story, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you don't miss any updates. Let us know in the comments what you think Paul should do next. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.